Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Design Cinema. This is Feng Zhu speaking for episode number 24, Ancient Battle. This is one of those paintings or scenarios that you often see in video games or films, such as Tomb Raider or Indiana Jones, these kind of adventure titles that take place in South America, these very cool Mayan, Aztec type of scenarios. And the purpose here is to showcase this big giant panther-like statue coming to life along with his two dog-like bodyguards, and they're going to battle a player character, which you'll see at the end of this video. I started this video kind of halfway through. You're seeing about 45 minutes that I skipped because the starting scenario is very similar to last week's and the week prior to that, which we're laying in a bunch of values and laying in a bunch of colors. I want to save the later half of the video to show you guys basically how we take a rough painting at this stage and bring it to a more refined finish, a little bit more finished than even last week's the siege painting, which is still in a pretty much rough state. Yeah, so I start by actually doing details on the outer rims here. You're seeing the details like the grass, the plants, and these kind of things that are not part of subject matter. And this is quite different than last week where we focused on the subject itself, right? And the reason for that mainly is because this requires a little bit more design thinking than last week's design video. I'm trying to actually figure out what I'm going to paint on this creature. You can see the big giant golden statue in the middle, right? The side stuff, these plants and these ancient ruins, is not that hard to do. I could almost be on autopilot when I'm painting those things. So even though my hand's moving and I'm painting, my brain is actually focused on the statue in the middle. I'm trying to figure out, okay, when I start to paint that thing, what am I going to add? What are the details I'm going to put in, right? So meanwhile, I don't want to waste time. I just stare at the screen, so I work on some stuff that's easy, like the plants and the roots and the bricks, the roads, those sort of kind of simple things, relatively simple things to paint. Yeah, and until my mind is kind of made up on what I'm going to do, then I'm actually going to design and paint the actual creature itself. I'm also recording this on a laptop. You're seeing this being done, painted on about a 2-year-old laptop. It's not very fast at all. Just to show you guys that it doesn't take a powerful machine to paint these kind of things. Although it is a lot slower than my home system. Saving this file took a good 3 to 5 minutes to save versus my home system is instantaneous. So it does slow you down a little bit, but don't let that be a stopping factor to continue your work. All right. The RAM on this machine is only 2 gigs, so it's very, very small. So here I'm still working on the outer rims, getting the details down. This is a daytime shot, which typically is a little bit more harder to paint than the nighttime stuff, which we've been doing, because all the lighting here has to come into play. We're seeing a lot of bounce light, we're seeing atmosphere. You're not going to get too many dark silhouettes in a shot like this, so you kind of have to define everything. But of course, going to use atmospheric fog and separation to get what we want to read, so now everything becomes too powerful. All right, we're too focused in the eye. Here I'm working on the plan. So a lot of this painting is self-explanatory. I'm just going to kind of go over whatever I think of in my head, I guess, and while you watch this video. And please watch in the HD as well. There's a lot of detail going on here. There's a little statue head I'm just painting to kind of get the mood in there, to get the ancient culture thing, the kind of Mayan, Aztec-y kind of thing going on. Even though the two cultures they're not related to each other, I don't think, but they're very similar in terms of the design elements. South American sculpted out of rock, limestone, that type of thing. Still working on the jungle, so at this point, same thing. My head is focused actually on the lion, panther creature, whatever that thing is, in the middle. Well, you can see how slow the refresh rate is, right? Because this is a laptop. So that little refresh rate is not YouTube, that's actually the laptop. Once in a while, you'll see the menu refresh. You'll see that I'm recording the whole screen this time versus just the painting itself. So I am in the third work mode of Photoshop, the press F 3 times mode. And all the menus, once in a while, you'll see my color palette and my brush. And that's kind of how I arrange my desktop at home as well. So I have a big custom color palette as well as custom brush that I put down the bottom. But most of the time, they're turned off by just pressing tab and you don't have any menus. So that's the way I like to work. So right now, building up scale, building up enough information so when someone looks at this painting, they kind of get a sense of scale, because it's tricky. We have a low horizon shot here because this creature is quite big, a big giant statue, right? So to make that bigger, we lower the horizon. But at the same time, I want enough human scaled elements in here to make sure that when you see this statue, it doesn't come off the size of a house cat, right? And the way to do that is to put elements that are much bigger in human scale next to it. right? So that way when you see it, it's even huge, right? It's much, much bigger than even say a little brick, right? And that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing a black and white pass to get the values. Values is key. So if you blur your eyes, you could check your values at this point to see if is it reading, is the subject matter popping out. Right? In this case, we have a dark object on a light sky, so that's good for contrast. So now I'm finally starting to decide to paint the face. Right? This is the hard part. This is the part we have to kind of concentrate to make sure, especially something that's a little bit more detailed. Make sure the perspective is correct, the lighting, the colors, the value, all those things come into play. So this is the kind of step. This is a step I'm actually spending my time thinking about while I was painting all the background information. Putting the eyes, the teeth. I did use quite a bit of reference for this painting, by the way. Again, maybe I'll put that up on the internet so you guys can see the initial stages of this. But I did some quick reference boards for Mayan as well as Aztec designs. So I'm kind of taking some elements here and there and putting together a new design. So this statue here doesn't exist, but it does use elements from various parts of the research material I collected, such as the face, a little bit of the face, I guess, the thing on his arm, which you will see soon, the thing dangling from his neck, which I'll paint as well. Those are all elements are existing. As for same thing with the big head dress thing, which you guys probably seen on the Mayan costumes. And I'm going to use that red as a focal point. Later on, you will see how I balance that red out towards the bottom for our lead character. All right, so this guy, the story here, when I paint these kind of things, I'm always trying to think of a story in my head. The point here is like kind of like the Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones, but this in this case is more of a video game scenario where the heroes maybe wandered into this valley and suddenly the earth starts to shake and the rubble starts to break everywhere. The ruins is falling apart and this huge giant cast statue, which you think is just a statue, comes to life, and that becomes your boss fight and that sort of thing, right? Or it could be in a film, same kind of thing. The giant reveal of a character, right? So here, just painting details. Now this painting, if you see, there's some textures in there. I laid in some very, very light textures. You see some on the brick walls on the lower left, and in this cat, you see some just kind of random patterns going across. Those are just to help give teeth to grip the scenario, grip the painting. But this didn't start with any kind of photographs. It's exactly the same as before. Right? Different technique, just a painting, just like last week. So I'm working on the headdress, slowly getting the details to come out on this guy. This part, you have to be quite patient. This part is not the most relaxing part in a painting for me when I'm doing these. This is a little bit more stressful than, say, painting the grass with the bricks around it, because those things, you can't screw it up too much. You mess up a plant, a root, or a direction of a leaf, nobody's going to know. But here, if you don't draw your details correctly, get the perspective right, it's not going to look good. So a lot of concentration at this point to try to make sure that this creature comes out the way I want it to. So I want him to seem big, huge, but not in a very, I guess, animated move. He's quite slow, versus the two dogs that you'll see underneath him. Those two guys are very slippery, and I put their pose in a very S-curve type of thing. So they move almost like snakes. Yeah. So that way they have this nice contrast of these quick moving creatures next to this very slow creature. So if this is a video game, for example, then this guy is quite slow. Maybe he can't even catch up to you most of the time, but if he does, he'll damage you big time. You know what I'm saying? Versus his two little bodyguards are fast, but if they hit you, maybe they won't kill you instantly, right? Because you're trading speed for power here. So I want to give him this regal type of pose. Putting his tail back there. So this painting in general took about 4.5 hours to do. When we first started, you're seeing a painting that's about 45 minutes in. So the rest, 3.5 hours, whatever, was put into this kind of thing you're seeing here. Now we're painting the tail to get the perspective in there. Give him a spiky tail so it looks harmful. He could kill you and stab you with those things. Continue adding details to the face. Like I mentioned last week, the face is where the viewer is going to focus their attention to when you look at a painting, especially like this that has a very prominent face next to a red color. That's the first thing a viewer is going to see. So you got to make sure there's enough details holding that up.